Good morning, everybody, and welcome to The Art as Well. We've two things to celebrate this morning. One is the fact that this is our 60th episode, which I'm quite proud of. I didn't think we'd get anywhere near that, but we did, and this is our 60th. But that pales into insignificance compared to my guest this morning, who had a triple whammy at a recent exhibition, which I'll tell you about in a second. But the first thing I'd like to do is just read from her biography, where she writes about her work, and I quote, "Each painting is a world unto itself, with rules laid down just for it, replete with its own questions, its own laws of what is permissible and what is outside the pale. I paint because of this world building capacity to exercise the superfluous, to create a complex simplicity. It's a world where I can find harmony, wholeness, and unity within the mixed bag that is life. A world where disparate beliefs and forks in the road can reflect my contrarian humanity, and yet still hold a sense of connectedness and belongingness." I just thought that was quite a nice intro to you, Caitlyn. So Caitlyn, she was born in Pennsylvania in 1988. She's been living in Ireland since 2013, and she's living in Galway at the moment. So we're going to go straight over to Galway to her new studio and say hello. Good morning, Caitlyn.
Yeah, good morning. Thanks so much
for
having me. Yeah, good.
Good. You're living here since the last 8 years or so?
Yeah, that's right, since 2013.
But you started your art education in Pennsylvania, didn't you?
I did, yeah.
Can you tell us a bit about your early days there? What was it like growing up in Pennsylvania?
Yeah, sure. So, I grew up about an hour south of Pittsburgh, which is like the second largest city in Pennsylvania on the southwestern side. And I grew up in a really small town of like 2,000 people. And it was the type of town where everybody knows everybody. And my dad is a pastor, and my mom was a teacher. She had special needs. So it was very much kind of everybody knows everybody type of a small town, which was
yes.
You know.
And did you move from there to do your education, or was that in that town?
No, I did move, but not very far, only like 2 hours away from there. I went to Indiana University of Pennsylvania, which was another small town, basically. Right. Yeah, and then I graduated from there in 2010. And
what exactly did you study?
I studied pretty much, it was almost like a little taster of everything. So I did like woodworking and metalworking and drawing and painting and ceramics.
Yes.
And I thought that I would actually be a metal worker, and I studied that up until like the last semester of my senior year. And it just got really burnt out of it though, and I ended up switching to painting.
Yes.
And that's kind of stuck. But I would love to do. I loved doing all those different things. So something I'd like to explore again.
And when did you meet Denman, your husband?
We actually met in high school. So when I was 15 and he was 17.
Yes.
And so we've been together for quite a long time, even though we're fairly young still.
You are 33.
Yeah.
And did you marry over there, or did you marry here?
We did marry over there. Yeah. So we moved over here together after we'd been married a few years.
Very good. And what possessed you to come over here? Did you not know?
Yeah. It's like, we really wanted to just live abroad somewhere, and we both loved the idea of Ireland. And then it worked out because his dad has Irish citizenship, and so Denman has that through him. And so it made moving to Ireland, I think, like quite a bit easier because we were married. So I could do anything that he could do essentially because of his citizenship.
Sure.
So.
And he works in a similar field to yourself, digital animation. Is that right?
He's a concept artist and illustrator mainly, and he does art direction as well.
Yeah.
So he works in the realm of games mainly.
Yes. Yeah, which is a huge area, massive, isn't it?
Yeah, it is massive. Absolutely. I think it's bigger than like film and music industries combined.
I think people of our age don't have any perception as to the extent of the games business in the world now. It's extraordinary.
yeah, it is wild. Yeah.
So the two of you work in peace in the one studio there.
Yeah, we do share a studio. Yeah, we were lucky enough to be able to buy our first house back in 2020. Like literally, like we literally moved in like just a few days before the first lockdown started, and it was a major fixer-upper project, and we ended up living in it for like 7 months when we really shouldn't have been living here at all because it needed all new electrical and plumbing and new walls and just a huge amount of work.
So you went sofa surfing, did you?
Yes, we did. So then, yeah, when the work came time to actually be able to do the work, our friend John in Navan deserves a sainthood for letting us stay with him because we were only supposed to be there for 3 months and we ended up being there for 8 months.
Wow.
And then, yeah, we're finally able to move in, have this really cool studio, which we were able to build as an extension to the house. And then we're still kind of finishing up a bunch of DIY projects. So studio is a little bit, work in progress, a bit sparse looking at the moment. But
yeah, very good. Well, we'll have a look around in a while.
Yep.
So tell me, in terms of your career, things didn't quite work out the way you'd hoped, did they, when you arrived over?
Yeah, not quite. That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on that a bit?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so at the time when we moved over, I was just going through a kind of a big identity shift, basically, where I had kind of grown up as a Christian and eventually kind of realized that that wasn't my path. And so I kind of went through a period of like a faith loss, basically, which kind of turned into just a huge crisis of self. And I had kind of lost a lot of self-trust, and which was really painful to go through, and then also, painful for my family to go through that alongside me, but they're all very gracious about that. But it did kind of derail me there for a few years. Kind of ended up in a place of depression there for a while. But doing much better now. But in hindsight, realizing that this year I also kind of learned about myself that I have something called Pmdd, which stands for premenstrual dysphoric disorder. And it's basically like an depressive cycles. Like every month I'll kind of go into like a depressive state for like.
But do you think that initiated the start of the whole thing, or was it just a factor?
I think it was just
probably a major factor.
Yeah, I think it was a factor. I mean, I think I would have kind of come to those conclusions regardless in terms of like my faith loss stuff, but I think that just made it all so much worse and just kind of exaggerated all of that, and it really affected my creative state of mind and my artistic output in a major way. And so I feel like I'm just, even though it was such a long time ago, I feel like I'm kind of, because of getting kind of the PMDD diagnosis, finally able to like figure out how to work with it instead of just kind of drowning in a bunch of unknowns and kind of why am I feeling this way.
So it was good when you could put a label to something, isn't it?
Yeah, very much. Yeah, in my case,
it's
it made a huge difference. Yeah, I was able to kind of get the help that I needed, and now I feel like I'm on my footing again.
Sure. So as you say, that put a halt to a lot of your creativity. When did that change? Did it change when you bought the house?
I was hoping that it would, I think, but because of COVID, and then we were so kind of disrupted by the construction process. I feel honestly, I don't think it's a coincidence that the Clouds Over Kirkpatrick painting came together the way that it did, because that was also the first painting that I made since I learned kind of these new things about myself.
Okay.
So I feel like I did make it. Like I've been painting the whole time the past 10 years, but it's been probably at a much slower pace, and also with just a huge amount of self-doubt.
I know. And is that repairing itself now because of the sort of accolades you've received?
Not, I wouldn't say because of those accolades. I would say more so because of counseling.
Okay, all
So
right, yeah.
I did some counseling, which just helped immensely with the depression and kind of figuring out that
Yeah.
learning to trust myself again essentially made a huge difference. And then receiving those accolades, of course, was just really nice.
Yeah.
A
Yeah.
nice affirmation on top of that I was kind of going in a direction that was not only right for me, but something that resonated with other people
Sure.
too.
As I mentioned, there's a double celebration, my 60th episode and your celebration, which, as I said, is a triple whammy, because you won in the 191st RHA annual exhibition this year. You won the Contemporary Irish Art Society's award for Best Emerging Artist. And I was speaking to the chairman of the chairperson of that society. And apparently the way it works is there are a number of examiners, you know, people whose job it is to look at all the work. And there's 5 in total, and they each have to pick a painting. And the person with the most votes, if you like, wins. So it's very democratic like that.
Okay.
And you were that person. Hmm?
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
I didn't know that's how they did that. That's really
I asked.
Yeah.
And the other award you won, which is, I mean, that's fantastic. But the other award you won was the Whites. They're the fine art auction house and dealers. The Whites Award, and I think that was for a work of distinction. And to top it, halfway through the exhibition, the Office of Public Works purchased the work for the state collection. So, I mean, wow, is all I could say.
Thanks.
That must have been such a boost for you, to your morale and everything else.
It totally was. Yeah, because it absolutely was. I've definitely been on the verge of quitting like a million times.
Yes.
So it was really not that external validation is kind of where I want to get my motivation from, but it certainly helps. Absolutely, yeah.
Absolutely, it must do. And you and I actually met at the Contemporary Irish Art Society's dinner, where I was doing a little talk. With Michelle Boyle, and I was introduced to you, and that's how we got to know, and how I got to know of your tremendous success. So I mean, let's do a quick run around your studio, shall we?
Oh, sure.
And then have a look at some of your work so you can see what we're talking about.
Yeah, it sounds good. Yeah, so like I was saying, we just were able to finally move back into our house in June. So we still have loads of like painting to do. So just let me flip the camera. I forgot to look how to do that. And let me go to kind of the front of the house. So this actually like connects into our kitchen. So this is kind of like my side of the studio. Just got there's not a lot to look at in here because I'm kind of in between works. And I have a new body of work that I've kind of started well, we'll talk about that later, but
sure, yeah. You're far too tidy for an artist, you know that?
I feel like it's almost like if I don't stay organized, I can't. It's almost like I'm so disorganized. I have to be really organized.
Yeah,
that makes sense. Otherwise I just kind of get really overwhelmed.
Sure.
But yes, this is like my palette, which is just all glass. I just have glass all over the table basically, and then all my
presumably the gray underneath the glass is intentional.
Yeah, it is. So that's just kind of a neutral gray color under there that makes it a little bit easier for me when I'm mixing values to like make sure that it's in the right range.
Yes.
And then I just got loads, my paint colors over here.
And you work in oils predominantly, do you?
Yeah, I do work in oils. Yeah. On my brushes.
Have you a particular favorite?
Like oil paint?
Yeah, as in manufacture or make.
Yeah, so I do like Michael Harding. I like Gamblin a lot, and I like Sennelier. That's mainly what I use, those 3.
Yes.
But there's, I think you can't paint with anything really.
Mix and match, yeah. And your brushes are that's a fairly extensive collection there.
Yeah, I do have some more, but these are the ones that I use on a regular basis. They're all rosemary brushes. They're all the ebony. Don't know if you can see that.
I know Rosemary & Co. Yeah.
Yeah, I really like the
very
new
good.
series. It's like, it's affordable, but it's really a really good brush.
Yeah.
Still. Yeah, so this is kind of my side. I usually have, that's my easel, and being in this studio has been amazing because it's got really high ceilings, so I can actually raise my easel up to the full height and do big paintings. And then this is Denman's side, all our books, and
yes,
Denman's a big computer setup, basically.
Lovely.
But yeah, so that's it. And we've got these great big skylights, which have been amazing.
Wonderful.
In this
It's all purpose built for your mutual needs.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. It was, and we designed it ourselves.
Yeah.
Just an architect was just kind of out of budget for us. And so it's kind of funnily enough, I think designing the house actually influenced how I designed this painting, which was kind of a cool one. That's really it. I mean, it's not. And I have a little fridge that I keep my paint in when after I've cut it out of the tube and mixed it. I keep it in the fridge.
Oh, now that's interesting. I've heard that before. Yeah.
So it's just a very painting messy mini fridge from IKEA. But
I wonder how many artists actually use that. It's a great idea. I think some of them would cover them with aluminium foil just to keep the oxygen out.
I actually have a few in there wrapped in aluminum and stuck in the tiny freezer there, and they last, for forever.
Very good.
But that's about it, really. Like, there's some stuff from the Kirkpatrick painting.
Yes.
That's really
okay. We'll have a look at that. But tell us first about this other side of your career, which is the fact that you do a bit of commission work in animation.
Yeah. So that's been kind of that was a really kind of fortuitous timing thing. The first time I did that was in 2016, and I was just not in a good place with my own art. I kind of was wrapped around kind of the depression and the Pmdd symptoms. I got into a place of being kind of really obsessive compulsive about like wiping my work away. So essentially constantly destroying my work because it was never good enough. Yes. And in hindsight, if I had taken a photograph and looked at it later, it actually was good, but it was like a dysphoria really where I couldn't see it.
Yeah.
So I was friends with one of the guys who worked, just getting a question about the fridge. It was just to keep the paint cold. It makes it last longer.
That's right. Yeah.
But one of the guys in the animation, we had known from a mutual friend in Pittsburgh, and they were starting an oil on glass short film. And that company is called Paper Panther. They're based in Dublin. And the director, Carol Freeman, has become a friend of mine. She's really great. And so they had about 5 different painters working on it. And it's a 6-minute short film, and it took us like 14 months to make.
Wow, really?
But kind of like the interesting thing about it was that every single frame is a separate painting. And so you have to wipe away the old frame in order to move on to the next one. And so for me, it was like perfection, or this idea of perfection just kind of went out the window.
Yeah.
And just had to work really, really fast and produce a huge volume of work in a really short amount of time. Like I probably would have like less than 5 minutes per painting.
Really?
To get it finished.
So this is a picture of you with the camera overhead. You can see that. And you're painting on glass there, your paint's underneath here. Yep. And you do a particular scene, and then you wipe off the oil and do the next one.
Yeah, so every single frame. So there was like something like 4,500 separate paintings that went into this. Yeah. Yes. And I probably did a couple thousand paintings in a short amount of time. And so that was like, it got me away from my own work, but I was still painting. Yeah. And just producing that many paintings in such a short period of time definitely affected my, I think it kind of forced me to grow quite a bit as a painter. Yeah. Which was very.
Did you find it quite therapeutic, because you're concentrating in a completely different way than if you're creating your own work per se, you're doing it to order.
Right. Yeah. I don't know if I'd say therapeutic per se,
Mm.
but it was because physically it was just extremely demanding work, like standing in the same spot, hunched over this thing in the dark for like 8 to 10 hours a day. So
Wow, yeah.
it ended up in physiotherapy.
Did you really?
Oh yeah, like we all did. It was not ergonomic.
You need
But
people to massage your neck and back while you're working like that.
yeah.
They have those in Google, apparently.
Oh my gosh, yeah, we should. That would have been amazing. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, so it was just, yeah, it was nice in a way to like to just my only job was to just paint, just make this
Mm.
kind of digital animation look cool.
Were you doing that at home, Caitlin, or were you doing
No,
it at the studio?
it was at a studio. This was in 2016, and it was in what's it called, A4 Sounds in Dublin One.
Yep.
They had a studio there at the time.
We'll put a link in the description after this on the video, so they can see the actual one that you worked on.
Yeah, yeah.
What's it
Yeah,
called? Is it the whale and the canary or something?
It's called The Bird and the Whale.
Bird and the
And
whale.
yeah, it actually won loads of awards, and it's still kind of doing the festival circuits and being
Yes.
shown around. And since then, I've worked on a couple other things with them as well, but that was the main one.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I think at this stage we're going to show some of your work, and because I want to talk to you in detail about the whole process of how you came up with this particular painting that you won your awards for, because it certainly was something that you worked on quite a long time, and to see the process of what you did in order to get it to where it was is absolutely fascinating as far as I'm concerned. So let's go and screen share and start that off.
Yep, sounds good. Yeah, so these three are portraits that I did. The two smaller ones are self-portraits. And the other one is a portrait of my husband Denman. And they're all of them are me trying to focus less on getting sort of the likeness to a sort of, photo realistic copy. I'm kind of ignoring that side of things a little bit and trying to really reach into something deeper and maybe even find like a slightly different facet for each. I did a few self-portraits, and these are just a couple of them around the time.
Yes.
And I think that they're also me starting to shift slightly into a slightly kind of expressionist approach. Yeah.
And are you using the palette knife there a bit?
No, not really, actually.
Or are you not? Okay. Yeah.
No, but I can see why you would ask that though, because they are very kind of rough looking in a lot of places, but just mainly just brushes and some medium mixed in, which kind of makes it more fluid, and I can kind of do like these like quick rough strokes pretty easily.
Yes. And what surface are you using there, Caitlin?
Those ones are all wood panel with acrylic gesso on top. Okay. And then, yeah, the portrait was kind of similar to the last ones, and me kind of exploring the space between, starting to shift more into exploring kind of representation mixed in with expressionist strokes and feeling, and I guess it's a little bit impressionist looking as well. That's actually my friend Chandrika, who is in Dublin. She's a writer and a really interesting person. Oh, I got a question there about my medium. I use mainly a medium by Gamblin called Neo Megalt, and it's got like a slightly fluffy texture, but it makes the paint feel very kind of silky and smooth, and you can work into it for a while without it like taking too long to dry. And then this other painting then is part of a series that I started after I visited Venice in 2019. Kind of starting to leave portraiture, or take a break from portraiture, I guess I would say, to focus more on larger figurative works where you starting to get a sense of the environment and the world around them, and kind of playing with abstraction and expressionism and kind of wonky drawing and things that aren't quite true to life, but they're true to life in a different way.
Yes.
In a more
yes.
emotional sense.
Beautiful. They create such a lovely atmosphere, I think.
Thank you. Yeah. That oh, I got another question about the medium. It's called neo-megilp. It's kind of a weird word, but it's spelled Neo. That's the first word, and then megilp is Megilp. And I might be saying it wrong too. That's just I've only ever read it. That's how I read it.
Yeah. And sorry, what is that? That's the type of medium for?
That's the type of medium that I use to mix in with my paints.
Ah, yes. Okay.
When I'm working.
Yes. All right.
Yeah, and these three are kind of a continuation of that series, all kind of inspired by things that I saw while we were in Venice.
Okay, so let's start with the top left hand, the very top one. Tell us about that.
Yeah, well, Venice was just such an incredible place visually, just almost overstimulating with so much to look at. And those ladies, I did a lot, so I did a ton of people watching, and I'm not a very good sneaky street photographer, but I was able to snap a few photos of these ladies who were meeting for lunch and just sharing a basket of chips all together. And I just loved their sense of camaraderie. Like they were all just so comfortable with each other, and it just looked like something that they did, where they met every day or every week, for the past however many years.
Yes.
So I just kind of wanted to capture something of that.
And do you use a camera a lot to capture your subjects? Yeah.
I do take a lot of photographs, and I try to just work from my own photographs. And if I need to supplement that occasionally with something else, I will, but I pretty much only work from photographs I've taken myself.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, and the bottom left?
Yeah, so that one was based on a wood sculpture that was in the Merchants Hall Guild in Venice, and it was like this extremely dark, like heavily wooded, like wood paneled space with all these different sculptures of different trades. And I just found it really captivating how excessive it all felt, but it was so impressive and really over the top. And I just kind of loved this guy with his kind of weird, kind of looking into different directions at the same time, and his posture and his hands and his materials. It just kind of struck me as very maker-like. And I really liked that.
And is that a large piece?
It's about 3 feet by 3 feet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good.
And
okay. Yeah. And then on the right?
Yeah, so this piece was based on a skeleton that I saw. We had the opportunity to go to one of the islands in Venice that had been used as a place to quarantine victims of the plague in the 1500s and earlier. And so that skeleton was on display. And when we were looking at it, and this was pre-pandemic, and it kind of, I guess now is somewhat relevant in a sense, because just so many people, didn't make it through that. And now the skeleton was on display, and it just called to my mind like questions of, humanity and tenderness, and who was this person, what was their experience like before they died, and now their bones are on display, and what does that say about what's sacred and what's not sacred? And this was my attempt to paint a skeleton in a tender way.
Yeah. Okay, so now we're getting on to the work and the preparatory work you've done on the piece that won these awards. Am I right? So talk us through that. I mean, are these journals that you use, or?
Yeah, that's my sketchbook. I tend to try to use like a slightly bigger sketchbook as much as I can, and just do as many thumbnails as I can. And for this painting, the idea actually started out from just a little doodle that I had done of like two little figures with floating heads, and I didn't really know why or what that was about, but but I liked it, and the more I worked on it, the more it just kind of kept growing and growing into this big, big painting that ended up being like a landscape with several figures in it.
Yes.
And so, and I think I mentioned that I designed kind of our extension in our house and stuff, and I got really obsessed with that and doing like a ton of iterations until I got it just right.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of influenced how I approached these sketches, where I thought like, I don't know, just that metaphor of building a house is like not wanting, like you don't just start building, you have to plan it out first, kind of just felt right to me.
Yeah.
So I just, I kind of went nuts on the iteration phase of this piece.
And do you use a pen, as in biro type of pen, or is it pencil?
It's a mechanical pencil.
Pencil, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so these were color studies then in oils that I just was playing around with lots of different ideas of where I might go. Because after I finished, I just wanted to kind of get the drawing right, the sketch right. And then I didn't allow myself to move into color ideas until I had done that.
Right.
Basically.
Yeah. And so, I mean, do you create a sort of a mood board?
In a way, yeah, I suppose that kind of is what that ended up being, where, I just have lots of different ideas, and it is a mood largely that I'm chasing. More so than anything else.
And color is obviously very significant to you. And I'm trying to put this into the correct English, but is color something that displays such an emotion for you that you have to get it exactly right? Because you're looking at shades of shades, almost, aren't you?
Yeah, definitely. Yes, very much
So you're
so.
very specific.
Yeah, very specific. Yeah, all of these are, the colors in that painting, are very intentional and specific. And I feel like in a lot of ways with that painting, I got away with a lot of weirdness because the colors were so friendly. And that was important to me, to have colors that were really kind of jubilant and buoyant and inviting and comforting. Yeah.
Do you see words in color?
See words in color.
Do you know what I mean by that? In other words, like, when you think of, I mean, I know my wife has days of the week, she sees them as colors.
Oh, like a
very specific, yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't have any synesthesia. I kind of wish I did, because it sounds really interesting. But no, I don't have that. But I do very much I have a need to be very particular with my thinking and my word choices and in color and all of that. And so I guess in a way it is probably a lot about associations between things that I want to get right.
Yeah. Okay, so this is yourself and your husband out on the beach.
Yeah.
Doing a bit of gestural work.
Yeah.
Yeah, tell us about this.
This was, my husband is very patient and supportive, is often models for my paintings. And so I needed to get loads of references where the lighting was all the same, and it needed to be outdoors. So we went to the beach and made fools of ourselves, taking really absurd photos and poses, and it was actually really fun. Definitely had some teenagers giggling at us, which is great.
I'm sure you did, yes.
Yeah, so all the figures in the paintings are based off of these references, but very much in a loose way, where I was just looking at these to get the lighting as it falls across forms right, so that it all felt cohesive. But then as I was painting them, I wanted to make sure this looked like a crowd of people and not just like, me and my husband over and over again. So so I altered them all quite a bit.
You can see a lot of the gestures that on these photographs that do appear.
Yeah, the hands and the body moves. Yeah, definitely.
Okay. All right. So this is coming up to the finished product. Finished work.
So this is just kind of the process of how I drew out the painting really large first, or to scale, I should say, on paper, which I didn't strictly need to do. Like, I know a lot of artists will kind of take their sketch and they'll have it printed out and then they'll use that to transfer it. But I hadn't worked this large before, and so the drawing it out to scale was just kind of a way for me to get comfortable with it and kind of get the feel of it to make sure it was everything was the right scale. So then I transferred it to the canvas with that kind of the old school technique of rubbing out the back side, and then you lay it on and trace over the front.
Yeah, yeah, just to get your proportions right and so on. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and then I kind of started painting in the big blocks of color to establish the masses and get things sitting where I wanted them to be sitting in perspective. And then it was kind of a matter of getting an optical buzz with the colors and having a lot of really subtle shifts within these large masses.
Yes.
Yeah.
And this is it. So explain for people like me what's going on here.
Yeah, it's a weird painting. Just acknowledge that first. But so this is Kirkpatrick. That the kind of monumental triangular peak in the center is Kirkpatrick, and we had hiked that right before we left to go to Navan and Meath, where we stayed while our house was being worked on. So that had been like the last excursion into the west coast that we'd done, and normally we try to hike a lot, and so I think this painting partly came out of a place of longing and yearning to be there again, and then the people that are kind of starting to congregate there on the bottom. Like Kirkpatrick had been a place of significance since like pagan times, so the people have been gathering there for thousands of years, which I just thought was so fascinating. And it's kind of different groups have come and gone, and now it's largely a site for Catholic pilgrimage. And so I just wanted to get this sense of people coming together and really this feeling of connectedness with the land, and this sense of place and belonging, and also this kind of interweaving of self with what is outside the self, and how the two can become joined and inseparable in a way.
Yeah. So I mean, you can see there that some of the heads are not part of the body necessarily. Yeah. So wonderful. Yeah, it's fantastic. Thanks. And the color, your color choices are just extraordinary.
Thanks, Ellen. Yeah, they were. It's kind of a shift. So, like, I mean, you can kind of see a lot of these colors in the Venice series, but I'm kind of using them in a more, in more large masses instead of them kind of bleeding into each other everywhere.
Yeah. So this particular style is quite a departure, but it's something that you actually like, isn't it? That's something you want to develop further and create more series.
Yeah, it is quite a departure. I feel like I've been trying to make this painting for several years now, and it just took that long for it to come out right in the way that it did. And so, yeah, my plan is to make a whole body of work kind of based around these ideas, and then, we'll see after that where I go. But for now, I feel like there's a lot for me to explore still.
Yes. Okay, and just to show you the scale of it, that's it in situ in the RHA exhibition.
Yeah, it's about 5 feet by 5 feet. So for me, that was really big.
Very, very impressive. Very impressive. And well done again. Okay, we're going to look here at how you actually chose these colors and the whole process you went through, where you might change something. And you're using Procreate, I think, at this point, are you?
Yeah, using Procreate to kind of go forward and come up with my next body of ideas. So I start in the sketchbook where I do all my sketches in pencil, and then I take a photograph of that on the iPad and bring it up in Procreate, and then I uploaded the Kirkpatrick painting into that, so I could kind of use that as reference for color, and then I'm just kind of playing around and seeing what works for my next paintings.
So to give you an idea of how that works, there's a little time lapse which we're going to show on the screen starting now. It's just very short, but it shows you how you can manipulate things and change colors and directions, all sorts of things.
Yeah, it's super helpful for doing a ton of iterations, and if you're not 100% clear where you want to go, you can move things around, and that makes it very easy to change things.
Yes.
That makes it very easy to do lots of versions of the same basic idea, which is super useful.
It's really amazing to see what you can do there.
Yeah,
and there was another proponent who we interviewed, Tim Booth, who uses Procreate, and he was singing its praises as well about how he uses it. Yeah.
I really, really like it, and I got onto this because of Denman, this digital artist, and he can actually do like finished illustrations and drawing in this. I mean, in a pretty crude way, but it's still really helpful.
I don't think I did this one, did I?
No, not yet.
Oh, no. Okay, here goes.
There's another one. Yeah, so just playing around with ideas and kind of staying in the West Coast as far as the landscape.
Mm-hmm.
And I really, if you can't tell by looking at my work, I love Paul Henry's work as well.
That did occur to me, yes.
Yeah, I love his paintings.
Wonderful. Okay, that's it. That's it. All right, I'm going to read out a couple of the comments that have been made. Morland mentioned the fridge. That's basically to keep your paints wet, as in they don't dry out, which they would with oxygen or heat. So it's the opposite of that, and it keeps them fresh as the day they came out of the tube. Yvonne, what medium solvent? Yeah, you've discussed that, have you?
Yeah.
Solvent. Did you use mention solvent?
Oh, the solvent. No, I didn't actually. I use Gamsol. It's Gamblin's solvent.
Solvent, yeah. Okay.
It's called Gamsol.
Is that odorless?
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can get it from Evans if you're in Ireland. You wanted to try it.
Sure. Okay. Medium again, please. Yeah, we did that. And that's written. Okay, Yvonne. Thanks. I hadn't heard of that medium. I love the light touch of your brushworks.
Thanks.
Gillian, enjoying the skeleton, the way it is placed, and the colors. Oops, sorry, jumped. Where are you? And the colors are all interesting, and the brush stroke and blending too. Yeah, it's nice, Gillian.
Thank you.
Yvonne says, really love your preparation process. You prepare very well, Yvonne. Stephanie says, congratulations, Caitlyn. Amazing work. Looking forward to seeing the new body of work.
Thanks, Stephanie. Yeah. I think I know Stephanie from Galway. So.
Leslie O'Hanlon says, we need artists and diversity in the hope that voices and stories move us all to reflect, to change, and to think with a new perspective. That's from Leslie.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah. Marianne says, great to hear your story. Thanks for being so open and honest. Niamh O'Connor says, good morning. What honesty. Those convos are so enlightening and insightful. Thank you. Kiss. Thank you. Wow is right. Congratulations. Hearty congratulations. That's from Niamh as well. Derek says, I love the tattoo.
Oh, thanks.
Malachy says, congratulations. Amazing work. Great generosity. And Ida says, beautiful work.
Oh, thank you.
Miriam McConnon, who's over in Cyprus, says, congratulations. Wonderful to see your way of working and to get an insight into your practice. I mean, that really was a very detailed insight into your practice. Lee Juan says, brilliant background info of your painting. Well done. Thanks for that.
Oh, thanks.
Okay.
Early Walt Disney cartoons. The early Walt Disney cartoons. Are you a fan of them?
Oh, yeah, totally. Yeah. Yeah, I would say I love animation, a lot of animation in general, especially those ones which are all painted as well. Yeah.
Do you see yourself getting more involved in animation, or will it be a combination of both?
So I mean, I do want to explore animation, like maybe oil on glass in my own work, in my own practice. But it probably wouldn't be anywhere near as polished as the work I made with them, because I don't actually know how to animate. I just know how to paint what has been animated. And so if I approach it myself, the animations will be probably pretty rough looking, but I actually think that could be kind of cool. So it's something that I want to explore.
And tell me something. When you do that with actual paint as against digitally, what's the difference?
So, well, the way that we did that project was that they had it digitally animated ahead of time, where all of the line work was animated by professional animators, and that was visible on a monitor in front of me. And then the camera facing down was capturing live what I was doing on the glass, which was then superimposed onto the digital animation on the monitor. So I was painting on the glass, but I was often looking at the monitor to make sure that my paint lined up with the digital animation.
Yes.
And so if I do it myself, I would probably try to do something similar, but my digital animation skills are pretty rubbish. So I will need to learn, or it will just be like a rough, kind of naive look, which could be.
Maybe your husband might help you in that regard.
Yeah, he could. He
knows it all.
He does kind of know everything. He's one of those people.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Anybody else like to ask a question?
Yeah. Can I ask a question on painting
sure,
on
Margie.
glass?
Hi.
Yeah. Hi. I tried painting on glass and I found it very difficult, but I used a clear gesso under the paint. I wondered, have you used that, or do you paint directly onto the glass?
So we would paint just directly onto the glass, and it is definitely hard because the paint doesn't stick to it in the same way that it sticks to other surfaces. And so the way that I got around it was by painting really thickly. So I just kind of lay it on really thick and then try not to touch it. Like every stroke was just laid down and left until I was ready to wipe it all away.
And that's oil paint you're using?
And it was oil paint. And the way that we prevented the oil paint from drying was using clove oil. Add clove oil to oil paint, and it prevents it from drying pretty much at all. It just stays wet for ages. But I wouldn't necessarily want to use that in my actual paintings, because clove oil is not the most stable color-wise, and it can eventually turn colors really dark and not look good over time.
Great, thanks very much.
Yeah.
Thanks, Margie.
Yeah, thanks, Margie. It's nice to see you again.
Anybody else?
NFT.
Yeah, NFT.
NFT, yeah.
Don't you start, Derek, on NFTs.
Non-fundable token.
Yeah,
I think that work with your Procreate and your finished painting would make a wonderful candidate for an NFT.
Thanks, Derek. Yeah, to be totally transparent, like I know NFTs are very popular right now, but I'm really not interested in NFTs. Yeah, it's not something that I'm interested.
No.
Okay, sorry.
And you're absolutely 100% entitled to feel that. Marianne says, I have to go now. Thanks very much, Caitlyn and Alan, for a great session. Thanks, Marianne. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Anybody else? Listen, before we go, just in case there aren't any other questions, you're more than welcome to, but I'm going to ask a question, which is what I ask of all the artists, and that is, Caitlyn, if you were to have any artwork in the world that you'd love to beg, borrow, or steal, to have over your mantelpiece to gloat over and see every day and admire, what would it be?
Yeah, so this was, I don't know, it's very, very hard to decide. Probably overthought about this, but I ended up with Paula Rego's The Artist in Her Studio from 1993. At first I thought it was a self-portrait, but it's actually not. It's a painting of a friend, a sculptor, or a model who was, acted as a sculptor, but I love it.
What nationality is the artist? Portuguese.
Yeah, Paula Rego. I didn't get to see it, but she recently had a show at Emma where they had a bunch of her works. It was during lockdowns and I wasn't able to go. But yeah, I just adore this painting, and if I could look at that every day, I think it would make me feel really happy.
It's a bit fun, isn't it? There's a bit of fun element to it.
Yeah, it is really fun, and it just has like this kind of like body triumphant, like feeling to it. Like she's not someone who's gonna take shit from anybody.
As she smokes her pipe.
And she's smoking a pipe. Yeah, which is hilarious.
And listens to the mouse playing the banjo. Very good.
Yeah, I love that piece.
Okie dokie. Anybody else like to ask a question?
If there are any differences between being an artist in America, if there are any differences between being an artist in America and being an artist in Ireland, in your experience, what are they? And if not, I guess this question doesn't have an answer.
Good question.
Joe's a friend from Galway. He's also an artist. He's a great painter. Yeah, so I guess I can only speak from my experience, which is, you know, small enough, but I would say one of the main differences is funding, because in the US, funding is almost impossible to get. Like there might be some huge prizes and some residencies, but they're very, very hard to get, and pretty far and few between. Whereas in Ireland, I know it's still hard here to get funding, but the opportunities are quite a bit broader. And even just that the Arts Council is there to kind of promote and fund a lot of different collectives and studios and individual artists, and you have public commissions, and that just isn't something that really artists can rely on in any way. In the States, and I know it's not perfect here, I know there's problems, but it is significantly better, I think, than it is in the US. And also healthcare is another thing. In the US, if you can't afford private healthcare, you're kind of screwed. Whereas here, at least, you know, you can go to the emergency room, you can go to the GP without, you know, becoming indebted to private hospitals for thousands and thousands of dollars. So that's kind of relieved some of the pressure if you wanted to be a self-employed artist. Here, it's a little bit, you know, just some things like that are make it easier. Not that it's ever easy anywhere per se, but I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah. Thanks for that, Joe.
Hi, Caitlyn. Many congratulations. I mean, what an achievement, girl. Fantastic. Come here to me. It's interesting to hear you talk about private and public healthcare and all of that. But as somebody who has struggled with physical health all her adult life, i.e. me, so we have that in common to a degree. I am very curious about, how do you find the strength to continue? I mean, so many are, like you said before, and I heard you say just earlier, you know, you were at a point where you thought of quitting. You know, there's this whole thing of Tesco supermarkets always in the back of my head if it all goes peak-tong, you know. I'm just curious about how do you find that resilience? And well bloody done. It's not easy. Well done.
Oh, thank you, Neve. I appreciate that. Thanks for sharing your experience there as well. But it's really, really hard, and especially kind of before I figured out what was going on with my mental health with the Pmdd, it was especially confusing because every month I would have these huge kind of crises of self and of this just overwhelming sense of sadness and loss, and crippling doubt and wanting to quit, and just feeling like I was incompetent and terrible at everything. And so that was just extremely disorienting. And I would say the only thing really that prevented me from quitting those many times was just support that I had around me. I was very lucky to have just a few key people in my life who, when I would go into that place, were really patient with me, essentially, and loving, and able to say, you know, I don't believe you, essentially, that you want to quit, because I just talked to you last week and you were like thrilled and in love with painting. So what's going on? Like, where is this coming from? So having that support, ability, and identify kind of like, is this really you, or is this just your brain misinterpreting the hormones? And, you know, I didn't know that at the time, but in hindsight, I'm just really grateful that I had people in my life who really knew me and were willing to kind of be honest and be supportive.
Well, bravo to them. And do you think those struggles have helped you in some way tap more into yourself and improve your art overall? Because it's such a personal journey, yeah.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's a hard one because, like, I will say that I think I've been able to create work in spite of having these struggles. I don't think the work arises out of the suffering, but I do think having had those experiences has made me extremely grateful for the times when I can create and kind of feel like myself. So it's kind of, it has definitely shaped a discipline of gratitude, which I think leads into joy. And so it overall, I suppose you could say that it has made me a more grateful, present person when I am myself.
Something we can all learn from. Well done, well done, well done.
Thanks for that, Niamh.
Cheers, Alan. Thank you.
Your questions are always wonderful and to the point.
Yeah, thank you.
I admire you for that. Thank you. All right, I think that's about it. Unless somebody shouts in quickly. No, all right. Okay, listen, we've gone over 11 anyway. All right, so there's just one new message. Oh yeah, thanks. I couldn't repeat that. All right, look, we leave it there, everyone. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Caitlyn, I hope you enjoyed it too.
Yeah, that's great.
I know everyone admires your honesty, and I think the work that you've done is fantastic in spite of everything. And whilst I appreciate that, you know, your depression is something that can't be cured by outside adulation of your work, and it's very much an internal thing that you need to sort out yourself, you know, with the help and support of those around you. Nonetheless, I know everyone will be so happy for you. And that I hope will stir some part of you to you know, get in the zone and continue what you're doing, because what you're doing is wonderful. And I'm really, really looking forward to seeing what you produce in the future, as I know we all will. So when this video is put up on YouTube, we'll have all the links to your website. We'll have the link to your animation work as well, if that's okay. We can put that in. I hope your people won't mind that. And anything else that we can. Okay, so look, very best of luck, and thanks to Emma next door in the kitchen. Wish you well. And next week we're going to do it all again. Yes, next Saturday at 10 o'clock, and I hope you'll join me then. Good. Yes, he made a little cameo appearance, a little photo bomb. Thanks for that. Okay. All right, listen, take care, and thank you so much, and thank you all for watching again. Bye-bye
thank
now.
you so much. It was great.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.